Hello, everybody. This is Marlon of Ashita no Anime. You're listening to the Ashita no Anime podcast number 9. Today I'm joined again by Eric, and we are going to be talking about Persona 4, the animation today. So, you and I both played the video game well before the anime came out. How many years later did the anime come out? Quite a few, right?
Um, it just came out last year, didn't it?
Yeah, 2011. Well, it was
Yeah.
2011, 2012 anime season.
And the game came out junior year of college. Well, year three. So that was 2009, I think.
Was it okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Uh, I actually am sitting at it right here. Yeah. Well, December 9th, 2008. So
Okay. So that's a good 4 years.
yeah, thereabouts. Yeah. Wow.
I'm actually didn't realize that the game remained mainstream for that long. That you could still get an anime out of the intellectual material. Or
Um,
that they would even try.
I that's a arguable point, but
Yeah, I guess you got. Let's not talk about that right now. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about more about the anime. Let's both talk about how we feel about the anime in general as it related to the game. For me, the biggest thing for me is I don't think that Persona 4 is the best game to translate into a story to tell for an anime because the game has a very free form flow to it because of the social links. For anybody who hasn't played the game and has only watched the anime, the social links are basically this side part to the main game. That the main game is basically an RPG, and it's just like your regular old RPG elements. But the social links are kind of like a dating sim in some aspects, or just a life simulation if you don't want it, because it's not always dating in Persona's case. And taking part in the social links will power up your abilities in the RPG side of the game. So I found it to be a very interesting mix of these two genres that admittedly are pretty close anyways because of the leveling up aspect of both sides. You're both pursuing some kind of final penultimate goal at the end in both of those types of games. And I felt that the animation just was Persona 4 the animation was just not a good way of showing how the social links work because it had to be redone in a way that fit a TV slot. So you had to finish a social link in the span of an episode of anime, and that's not how it always goes in the game. You could start a social link at the very beginning of the game and finish it over the entire course of the game. And I think that kind of took a little bit of the ambiance of the game as realistically portraying how a relationship develops or could develop, and compressing it into much too short a time. It felt very forced to me in the animation. That's probably one of the biggest reasons that I don't think that I just don't think it was a very good game to translate into an anime.
um, for the first time in pretty much ever on this podcast, we are actually in perfect agreements. Persona 4 just is not. It's an anime is not exactly Persona 4's ideal way to be shown. I mean, the main plot itself, well, not terrible, is really truly not great, especially as far as mystery series goes. Like we talked about it
Mm-hmm.
last week in Hyoka, but um, a lot of the mystery in Persona 4 just kind of happens and is never really hinted at.
No, yeah, the game had a lot more atmosphere to it, at least. I wouldn't really say that the clues were all there, like a good mystery should do. but there was definitely a better atmosphere to it because I felt that the interactive quality of the game gave it it gave you more investment in it.
Right. The true strengths of Persona 3 and Persona 4 are in empowering the player character with doing as much or as little as they want. Like you were saying that you could feasibly ignore social links for more than half a game, but it goes for more than that. You could feasibly ignore every social link if you really wanted to. Like
Except for the
your
mandatory ones that just happen as part of the story, of course, but that's besides
of
the point.
of which there's only one of those in both the games, I think.
Two, actually.
Two? Okay.
The Fool and Judgment.
Yeah. Wait, really? Well, I thought it was the world.
No, World is your reward for completing every social link.
No, I can tell you that much. I can tell you that much for sure, because I have never completed both of the or either of the games every social link because that's almost impossible to do on your first go through.
Then I'm gonna have to defer to your expertise then because I've never gotten World, and also did not complete all the social links in any of my playthroughs of the games.
Yeah, I would have to do more research, but
Okay, let's not go into that right now. Let's talk about the anime.
well, we can't really talk about the anime without talking about the game. I mean,
Yeah,
it's such a straight adaptation that a lot of the problems that the game had, the anime also has.
but
Like,
got accentuated because it had to fit into a TV format, like I already said.
right, like I watched the first 5 episodes, which I wasn't anticipating doing because I have played the game, and the first 4 are just such straight adaptations of exactly what happens in the game that it's almost kind of annoying. But then the 5th episode is where the first of the side quests uh, happens, where they cover 2 social links at the exact same time. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember either of those. Probably because I didn't finish them in the game. Probably because I don't like those Arcanas in the Persona series, but that's another point entirely. And it was just really rushed. Yeah, that's really all I
Yeah,
can say. It's
the pace was very much rushed, but that's definitely one of the big problems.
right, and seeing each of the events happen one after the other when they're far more broken up and piecemeal in Persona 4. Like, it's not that the social links are generic. This can happen at any time. There is definitely a flow to them in the game. It's just that in the game, you're probably not going to push any given social link more than like 2 or 3 levels during a specific in-game week. So for every half-hour play session, you'll maybe see 3 different social links for 3 different characters. But the anime didn't really do that. Like, I'm actually kind of curious to find out how they'll show the main casts as it goes on, like the social links with Yosuke and everyone else in the group, because those generally happened all throughout the series or all throughout the game.
Yeah. I
And
think if I remember correctly, I don't want to spoil it for you. Are you going to continue watching the series, the anime?
um, uh, I don't know, maybe. Like this is something that I would
Uh,
probably pull up if I'm bored and wanting to do something else.
I I actually can't seem to recall anything specific off the top of my head, and that is leading me to believe that it was just the main part of the story. Whenever there was those kinds of moments where it could be they could also talk about the characters' personal lives as part of advancing the mystery. And it's kind of like they're working on the mystery, but they're also kind of hanging out together at the same time.
Right.
That they kind of pushed it in those at those times.
Hmm. I
And
I don't know how I feel about that.
and looking back on it, I kind of feel like they got shortchanged in that way because they just the main character's personalities just kind of got woven into the background as part of the main story almost. They didn't really ever get to be interesting on their own.
Man, that actually really makes me depressed because as far as I'm concerned, uh, I like Persona
Yeah.
4 much better than Persona 3 in pretty much every aspect. But the best aspect for me is the fact that the characters are just so much they're so much more real than Persona 3's characters. They
Yeah.
feel more like high schoolers.
Yeah.
And the fact that the anime apparently decides to shortchange that for the not the greatest side plot is really truly depressing to me.
Yeah. You haven't gotten to any of the points yet, but I think there are a few episodes where the anime actually injects its own little original content as well. I really didn't care for that personally. As much as I would have liked more original content, I just don't think it was done very well. It kind of broke out of left field and it was just kind of like, where did this come from? This wasn't, I didn't want this.
Man, if you can take a 90-hour game and not manage to get 25 episodes out of that, it truly terrifies me as to what you're doing wrong.
But I think to its credit, the game was good enough to still warrant the anime to still be pretty darn good. One of the biggest things since I moved to Japan, pretty much like immediately after moving to Japan, I actually am in a area that actually has a river that has a floodplain. So when I'm riding my bike to work, I can go down the road that runs alongside the floodplain, and it's just like the floodplain in Persona 4. It's actually pretty cool. There's like steps that go across. There's fishing spots. There's people that are always walking down there, and it actually is. It's a way to experience Japan without going to Japan. I mean, there's nothing that can ever replace the real McCoy, of course, but you can still learn about what goes on in Japan a little bit by seeing the media that comes out of Japan. I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but it's true that all fiction has to have some basis in reality.
Right. And I mean, again, and we're going to be comparing this to the game throughout, that's honestly more to the game's strength than it is to the animes, because that was all there in the game. As much as the modern Persona games annoy me, I think that they both have really strong settings.
Yeah, and that's another thing that just didn't get carried over in the anime very well. Especially like the environments that were conjured up by the shadows of the main characters. You spend a lot of time in each of those areas when you're playing the game, and those areas have an ambiance to them. There's an atmosphere in the music and the visual design of those areas. Some of the areas are even like randomly generated by the game.
Yeah.
And that interactive exploration and the amount of time that you invest in those areas just does not translate into the anime. You don't really get that feel for what these characters' inner personalities are hiding.
Actually, yeah, that makes sense. There was the first major arc is as in the game, Yukiko's shadow, which is really truly kind of terrifying. And then there was something just completely off in the way the anime was handling it, but then based on what you just said, I just realized they never really showed the dungeon as like a dungeon. A lot of the little details that were in the walls, and despite the fact that pretty much every level is randomly generated in Persona 4, the various dungeons have all of these different little details. Like, I kind of want to continue on to see Kanji's dungeon just to see if they adapted it as it was, because that is still probably the one that was most standing out to me, aside from the 8-bit dungeon, which I kind of loved for different reasons, but...
Yeah, the 8-bit dungeon actually was a Kubo's dungeon. Mitsuo Kubo's dungeon. That was actually one of the points that they actually did some an original take on how Yu Narukami, that they'd actually named the main character in the series.
Right.
How he reacts to that dungeon was actually probably the only original point in the anime that I thought was actually done pretty well.
Well, the problem is you have to give Yu a personality, and they haven't done that so far, so I'm kind of curious to see what they do with him.
I think they just kind of give him the personality of the player as if the player was not playing to be a jerk.
Right.
It's basically nice guy Yu. If you're playing the game to basically max out everything, he's a good guy, and that's kind of how I think we may have argued about this to some point in the past. Maybe I argued about this with somebody else who was a Persona fan, but I have a couple of Persona fan friends. But I always said that the personalities of the main characters in Persona 3 and Persona 4 actually do exist. They are not completely dictated by the player in some ways, because it's a series of set responses. And if you're playing to be the straight character, the character that is being a nice guy, they are different kinds of nice guys. And that, I think that carries over into the anime as well for Persona 4.
No, we've had this discussion before, and I very much disagree. There is no personality in either Persona 3 or Persona 4's protagonists.
I guess we're going to have to disagree on that point.
At least up until Persona 4 Persona 4 Arena, at which point they also had to give you a personality, but that happens after the game, and that's in very dubious canon, is the word I'm looking for. As a result of being just being a generic silent character, you and whatever the Persona 3's protagonist, whatever Persona 3's protagonist names are.
I believe it is set for Persona 3 that it's going to be Minato Arisato.
Yeah. Wait, are they doing an anime of that?
Yeah, they're going to do Persona 3 the movie. It's coming out this year.
Oh, Christ. Oh.
That game is going to have a movie adaptation.
That's kind of depressing. Oh, wow, that's even worse than an anime. They're not going to be able to do anything except cover the main plot, and the main plot in Persona 3 is so bad.
I liked it.
Ugh, hate it.
Admittedly, I guess I generally like dark stuff. I like that kind of that brooding atmosphere if it's done well. And I thought that P3 did its brooding atmosphere very well.
I dislike the plot for a lot of its various purposes. I think the atmosphere is done fine. It's just a lot of the interiors just kind of kill me. Like, the characters are all... I hate each of the characters. But that's Persona 3, and when that movie comes out, we might have to discuss that. But, where was I going with this? This is a tangent. Yu and Minato. They mean everything to everyone, but by doing that, they also mean nothing to no one. Well, wait. They mean nothing, essentially. You can't be everyone and then also claim that you have a character per se. It's so highly malleable. It's like comparing it to characters of old RPGs. Like I honestly wouldn't say that Chrono from Chrono Trigger has a character, but he is still one of my favorite protagonists. And that's the kind of thing that can work in an RPG where the entire point is, again, playing a role. So what the designers gave you was a blank slate that you could put on whatever you wanted to. Um, and
But
a
you
lot
can't
of that,
really put whatever you want. There are a certain number of set responses, and the way that the NPCs react to those responses kind of fleshes them out a little bit more as to what it actually meant.
right, but you can also read into anything what the NPC says. And that's not even
I suppose.
pointing out just how schizophrenic a character would have to be to get every social link in a game. There's a reason that to do that there is such a tight deadline to do everything. Like, I think that in Persona 3, literally every day has to be done a specific way if you want to get every social link. And I can't remember if they loosened that up for Persona 4 at all, but if they did, then it wasn't loosened up very much. Because realistically, you're not going to max every social link. You'll maybe hit half of them in a given playthrough. But that's also the point of the game. You're supposed to make big choices over who you want to be around with, who you want to understand more, which in turn will influence your persona usage.
Yeah, I think that for both P3 and P4, I got about 80% of the social links by the time the game ended. I got way more than half.
Yeah, okay. So I literally haven't played either of the games since they came out because they were both 90-hour games for me. So I wasn't going to retouch them.
Yeah,
Plus,
I played
I
Persona 3 way more times than I played Persona 4. I think I've only played Persona 4 once. I played Persona 3 multiple times because one, I borrowed it from a friend. Two, I believe I watched you play it the first time.
yeah,
And
probably.
then I played through it again just to have my own save file at some point. I can't remember how that all went down, but I know I've played Persona 3 multiple times.
Right. And aren't you also doing the P3P?
Yeah, I'm still doing Persona 3 Portable, and I'm playing the female protagonist arc,
Right.
which fans have given the unofficial name, and I think it's pretty fitting, the Minako Arisato.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Change the
Yeah,
last T to a K, and that works.
it makes it feminine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as much as I like Shin Megami Tensei and the Persona games, I prefer the old style Persona games.
I never
So
played
I
it, so
haven't.
I can't comment on that.
Persona 2 is one of the best games in the Mega 10 series as a whole, and it's honestly kind of depressing that we're not getting the PSP remake of the sequel to the first part.
All right. One of the things, though, that I absolutely loved about the anime was the music. How they expanded, they gave an expanded version of the opening for the game right away in the first episode, and then I believe it was the same artist, the same guy who composed the game's music. What was his name?
Shoji Meguro.
Okay, Shoji Meguro. That's right. Yep. And that was just a real treat to hear some new tracks from him composed in that style of Persona 4, and but that's something that I absolutely loved about the anime, if nothing else. It was nice. The cake may have been a little dry, but the icing was sweet.
Yeah, that's actually the anime. As many problems as we both have with the plot, it really nails the look and feel of Persona 4 really extremely well. Like the moment I started and it started playing out the extended version of Reach Out to the Truth, I just kind of got this big stupid smile on my face because it really hit all of those nostalgic buttons for playing the game. Just sitting down and playing the game and seeing all of the really striking visual aspects for the first time. Each of the characters are maintained pretty well, and I think that it's also done by the same group that did the few animated cutscenes in the actual game.
Yeah.
So they managed to maintain the visual consistency with the game, and that also plays out into the overusage of yellow as the main Persona color for that game.
Yeah.
And
that works. It gives it a distinct style. It gives it a feel.
It's very explicitly Persona 4.
Yeah.
It's just more of Persona 4, and how much you like that is going to depend entirely on how much you like the game, because I don't think that this is going to convince anyone to play the games.
No. Definitely play the games before you watch the anime. I said that in my review, and I'll say it again here. I say the anime is a supplement for lovers of the game.
Yeah, because for every shortcoming that the game has, it's doled out in an interesting enough narrative structure that you kind of see in the series, because the series doesn't show entire days. It only shows snippets, and then it shows that it's only showing snippets by progressing the calendar in the same way that it does in the game.
Right, but you don't hit every single day. It hits the important days.
Yeah, and that works in a game where you can have every single day hit, but
you get lost in the anime, don't you?
I wouldn't say I get lost, because I don't truly follow the dates. Honestly, that much. It's just a way of, it's a gameplay conceit showing the passing of time, which is cool, but I didn't really set myself to it.
I just remember a little piece of weird trivia. Let's see, because this doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about, but it's just something that I always like to mention because I think it's cool. When I was playing Persona 3, from their release date, the games are actually set a little bit in the future. I think it's like 2 years in the future or something. So I was playing Persona 3, I think like 2 years after it came out. And so the date in game had actually advanced to the current day. And it actually happened to be my birthday in the game, and the exact same date in real life. So the game date and the real life date were the exact same day. And that also happened to be the day that I, in game, completed a side quest to defeat the Reaper. So it was just this weird coincidence of dates and times all lining up, and it was just like, that's kind of funky.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that was really cool. But going back to the music, Reach Out to the Truth. Well, going back to, okay, so in Persona 3, Burn My Dread, the opening of the video game, got the long version on a CD quite early on. It was released as part of the soundtrack for the game, and when the soundtrack for Persona 4 came out, I was very, very disappointed that Reach Out to the Truth never had the long version until the anime. I was wondering how early on they had actually planned the anime. I wonder if they're like saving that. I just don't think they were. What do you think?
Wasn't the I actually don't think that Reach Out to the Truth had a long version.
Not until the anime.
No, I mean yeah, but Burn My Dread, I think came out. The full version came out with FES.
Is it?
I couldn't tell you. I'm actually not on the side of my computer that has all my music.
I don't think it did, because I believe the FES actually had a new theme, didn't it?
It did, but it was a bunch of remixes,
okay.
And yeah. But I think that Reach Out to the Truth, as shown in the game, was as much as was composed.
Yeah.
and so the anime gave it an extended edition essentially.
What was your reaction to hearing the Japanese voice actors?
Oh God, it was a negative reaction.
Oh,
It was
really?
such a negative reaction. I hated it. It's
Were you just so used to hearing it all in English?
yeah, this was my my entire reaction to this was these are not my characters. This is not Yosuke. This is not Yukiko. This is someone completely different. But the part that really stood out for me, like the differences in the Japanese version, and honestly, just how masterfully it was localized, is in Junes's theme song, where it's shown in the anime like it was in the Japanese version to be everyday young life Junes,
Yes.
and I knew it was coming, and when it wasn't everyday's great at your Junes, it just kind of kills me a little bit.
Jarred you, huh?
Yeah,
It was jarring,
it's
huh?
just one
Oh,
of the best parts.
I actually, well, because I'd been a fan of Persona 3, so I was paying attention to Persona 4, and I was looking at what was being released, and I actually was watching some gameplay footage before it came out in the States, and I found out that Chie and Rise both are done by two of my favorite voice actresses. So it was actually a real treat for me to hear it in Japanese because I finally got to listen to Yui Horie and Rie Kugamiya, and so uh, I guess I had the opposite reaction. I thought that it was nice to see a different version of it, a different side of the game that I'd never seen before, and that way it was almost kind of refreshing. I almost want to say that I kind of compartmentalized the anime from the separated it from the video game and to some extent because of that. It was almost like a spin-off. I felt in some ways, even though it really isn't.
Yeah,
Not by
that's
any
what it
X.
sounds like.
Yeah. But that may be why I rated it much higher. But then maybe it deserved objectively. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to give it a nod.
Well, then that's really all you can ask for your scoring system. I don't know. I just like we're both in agreement that it's not very good.
No, it's this as an anime as a piece. It's not very good. It's not bad either though.
No, well, it's
Because it's not bad because the source material is so good.
right, and a lot of the best things that it's carrying over, the visual style, the definitely the music,
Yes, the music.
and the feel of Yasu Inaba, or was it just Inaba?
Inaba.
Yeah.
Yasu Inaba, I believe, was the dark side in the Shadow World.
Okay.
In
I don't.
Midnight Channel.
I don't remember them explicitly calling
No,
it
no,
that,
no,
but I
no,
can.
that was my Yasu. Yeah, that was Yasu Inaba.
Okay.
Yeah, Inaba was just the regular one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Regular. Right. But it's just regular Inaba. Yeah. No. It's something that is. It was really strong in the game, and I think it's more a testament to the quality of the game that it can maintain that strength throughout,
Yeah.
even in a medium that it's very much not suited for.
This is this nice little thing that I like to tell all of my Japanese friends over here whenever Persona comes up. And we're talking about Persona 4. In Persona 4, the Japanese version, Ted's name is Kuma, which is the Japanese word for bear. So I have to explain to them that you can't say that in English. Nobody would get it. So it really is a good testament to how well the the game was localized, just from a creative aspect. So to call him Teddy is just like, yeah, that's a bear's name in English. That's what you would say. That's a good joke. But I turn that around and I tell it to my Japanese friends, and they don't get it. And some of them get it because teddy bear is not an unknown thing over here in Japan, but the number of people who do know about it is not very high.
Right.
But so the people who do hear it and understand it think that it's pretty cool, but in the same way, it doesn't carry over from Japan. There is that barrier to compartmentalize. It's not much of a stretch to let it be two different pieces, both inspired by one. I don't think it's too big of a stretch.
Right. Well, I was watching on actually Teddy is probably a really interesting case study of that. I was watching the Hulu version, which I think has the official subs.
Yeah.
And it looks like they were trying to strike a halfway point between with Teddy's character anyway, between the Japanese and the American version.
Because Japanese, it's easier to get those puns in. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It wasn't just that Teddy's character was named Kuma in the original, it's that he would throw Kuma into random places in a sentence as kind of his verbal tick, which we also talked about last time.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that just throwing bear into a random sentence doesn't work. So what the guys at at Atlas did was they essentially made it so that everything he said was a wordplay on some kind of bear. It's a pun. It's in the same. It's not a direct translation, but it's in the same feel as the original, and it's
localization.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of the game, and at least the anime's official subs didn't actually go with that. Like, it went with a weird combination of the two, and it just didn't work out quite as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the fan groups were doing, but the official release is not great.
I don't know. I thought that it was interesting. I don't think it was the best choice they could have gone with, but I think that it was an interesting take on it. I think that you're right. That is an interesting case study. I'd like to, if anybody wants to analyze that a little bit more, give a link. I'd love to read a little bit more about that.
I actually know some of the people who work at Atlas and translated this game, localized this game. Anyway, I'd kind of be curious to find out what he would have to say about the anime.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you can't get in contact with him, bring him on. I doubt it could happen, but hey, you never know.
Right.
That'd be cool. Was there anything else? I think that I've said everything that I really wanted to say by this point.
As much as I like the Megaten series and Persona by extension, and as much as I like Persona 4, I can't really say that this is a good adaptation. It is an adaptation, but yeah, the most I could say is just please play the game. You'll spend more time on it than you would by watching the anime, but you'll get so much more out of it.
I think that when it comes up in the spring 2013 season, we both need to talk again on Megaten again when Devil Survivor 2, the animation, comes out, because it's by the same people who did Persona 4, the animations, by Atlas, the company who made the game, who made both games as well. And I actually think that just thinking about Devil Survivor as how that game is written and how it's it doesn't really have social links, but it does have a lot of dialogue, and it's a very dialogue-heavy game, and the outcome of the game is very dependent on how you how you interact with people, and who you prioritize. I think that Devil Survivor is going to be a better translation to anime than Persona 4 was. That's just my prediction, because of how the story is composed, how the story is paced. I think that there is better potential for Megaten franchise to get a better anime out of it.
Right. Well, this is something like the third or fourth Megaten anime, and it's still not good, so I don't know. And if it's by the same group, oh. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting because I've never actually played Devil Survivor 2. I was kind of turned off partway through the first one, and the character designs just kind of irk me in the wrong ways. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. As
Yeah.
it stands, Megaten still hasn't had a good anime adaptation, and
No.
I think it's probably better that way.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to get in contact with me and you want to do a podcast about anime or Japan related topics, you don't even have to disagree with me. We can just talk about something that we both like. Go ahead and get in contact with me. Send me an email at marlonbetagamer@gmail.com. Leave a comment to this post on WordPress. Leave a comment to the YouTube video. We'll figure something out, and we'll do something together. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye bye.